Hello and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Anne Mwauda. Coming up on the program, at least 3 shot dead while protesting water shortage in Ethiopia, according to residents. Voter registration starts in spite of unrest in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Plus, after almost 3 years, Ivory Coast reopens land borders. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Welcome. We begin with the report that Ethiopian security forces killed at least 3 people when they fired at people protesting against water shortage in the southern town of Wolteted. Some 5 other people sustained injuries during the protest. Residents were angered by worsening water shortage in the town and held a protest in front of the city's water management office. Attempts to speak to district officials have not been successful. The United States is deeply concerned by the reports of arrests of political figures, business leaders, and journalists in Tunisia in recent days. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price says U.S. officials were engaged in Tunisia's government at all levels to support human rights and the freedom of expression. In recent days, Tunisian police have detained a number of leading figures with links to the opposition or critics of Mr. Said, including prominent politicians, 2 judges, and head of Tunisia's main independent news outlets and a senior UGTT labor union official. The coordinated arrests have raised fears of a wider crackdown on dissent and prompted the UN Human Rights Office to call for their immediate release.
We are deeply concerned by the reported arrests of multiple political figures, business leaders, and journalists in Tunisia in recent days. We respect the aspirations of the Tunisian people for an independent and transparent judiciary that is able to protect fundamental freedoms for all. We are engaged with the Tunisian government at all levels in support of human rights and the freedom of expression. It is a core U.S. principle that people around the world should be able to express themselves without fear or reprisal. All governments have a responsibility to uphold this basic tenet.
And now we have Maya Misihir, who's a VOA journalist from Addis Ababa. Thank you for joining us, Maya.
Thank you.
Give us a background to this incident.
So the incident, it took place about 150 kilometers from the capital, Addis Ababa, in a town called Wolteted. Wolteted is the zonal capital of Gurage. And then from the people that I spoke to in the area, this was caused by a prolonged water shortage in the area. From what I know and from the people I spoke to, there have been areas who have had no water services from anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And yesterday what had happened was these people who had been waiting in line for water, which is a very common occurrence from what I understand, went to the Water Bureau to protest, and things escalated, and there was a disproportionate response from the security forces in the area, and after which they opened fire on the protesters. From the people I spoke to, this is what I have gathered.
Now, what's the situation now in the area? Has calm returned?
You can say the calm has returned. From what I understood, the town of Wolteted is very quiet. All the government offices have been closed. All the businesses have closed. It's a very, the person I spoke to, an inhabitant there who was attending a funeral, told me it's a very sad day. People are in mourning. And overall, very quiet, no activity in the town.
And have bodies of these people who died been recovered?
I spoke to a surgeon at the Wolgate University Hospital, which is a hospital under the university, and from what he has told me, the bodies have been recovered. In fact, one of the people I spoke to was at a funeral today. So from his accounts, 2 people arrived dead at the hospital yesterday. Heavy bleeding caused the death, and they did not have any blood banks in the area, so they were unable to save their lives. He also informed me that another person had passed away before reaching the hospital today.
Very sad indeed. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Thank you very much, Maya Misekera. She's VOA journalist from Addis Ababa. Thanks for your time on Network Africa. We move to other stories now. Meanwhile, Tunisia's president has accused some people detained in a wave of recent arrests of being responsible for price increases of food shortages, saying they wanted to fuel a social crisis. President Kais Saied vowed to move forward to clean the country in his first official comments on the arrests made during the meeting with Tunisia's trade minister. Since Saturday, police have detained a number of leading figures with links to the opposition or critics of Mr. Saied. He did not give any details on which of the detained people he was referring to. He didn't give details, however, of how they were responsible for the crisis. In the video, Mr. Saied was shown calling on judges to take appropriate decision against, according to him, the traitors who seek to fuel the social crisis. Tunisians have been suffering for months from shortage of food that have disappeared from stores, including sugar, cooking oil, coffee, milk, and butter. Economic experts have said the shortages, which have affected subsidized products, are mainly caused by crisis in public finances as the state attempts to avert bankruptcy while negotiating for an international bailout. The opposition has said the campaign of arrests aims to silence dissent, empower a slide towards autocracy, and even cover Mr. Saied's failure to manage the worsening social and crisis in the economy. Tunisia's main opposition coalition has described the string of arrests targeting critics of President Kais Saied as repressive, violent, and legally baseless. 18 months ago, President Saied shut down Tunisia's parliament and even moved to rule by decree before rewriting the country's constitution. He's been accused of mounting a coup. The UN has voiced alarm over the arrest, but the president has insisted those detained are traitors responsible for soaring price of food and the shortage of food commodities. The United Nations multidimensional mission in the capital African Republic has co-signed an integrated plan for the security of elections. Speaking to journalists in New York, the UN spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stéphane Dujarric, also said the plan was signed with the Prime Minister Felix Moloa and the President of the National Authority for Elections, Matthias Maruba.
We have an update from our peacekeeping mission there, otherwise known as MINUSCA, which co-signed an integrated plan for the security of elections. That plan was signed yesterday with the Prime Minister, Felix Moloa, and the President of the National Authority for Elections, Matthias Barthélemy Maruba. That plan would enable the timely holding of peaceful and inclusive local elections for the first time since 1988. The UN mission continues to raise awareness on the elections and promote peace among local communities and authorities, notably in Haute-Koto, Ouam, Ouandjanda-Koto prefectures, and has provided specialized training on the protection of civilians to 25 defense and security forces operating in those regions. Over the past week, the security situation remained tense, with explosive device incidents reported in the western part of the Central African Republic. Our peacekeeping mission conducted 2,015 patrols, maintaining a robust over the past week, maintaining a robust posture in Basse-Koto, Haute-Koto, and Nana Mbere prefectures to ensure the protection of civilians.
The United Nations top advisor for finding solutions for internally displaced people has completed his first visit to Somalia, which includes meeting with both senior government officials and displaced Somalis. Mr. Piper's visit from 12 to 15 February was aimed at familiarizing himself with issues in Somalia, as well as advocating for the operationalization of the Secretary General's action agenda on internal displacement. Somalia is one of the 16 U.S. member states selected to pilot the action agenda.
Who are also living. We came to Baidoa today, a group of UN colleagues and NGO partners, to listen, to learn about the story of displacement in this part of Somalia. It's a story of a massive impact, of course, of climate change, the impact of insecurity and the actions of Al-Shabaab. But it's also a story about leadership, about a state government that is taking responsibility, about a mayor in Baidoa who wants to bring solutions to citizens in his town. It's an international effort as well as a Somali effort. We sat with IDPs themselves and we listened to their stories. We listened to, on the one hand, their gratitude at some of the progress that has been made on their behalf. Above all, many of them said they now feel safe. Those that we spoke to now have a title on the property that they live in, which is a life-changing development. But they also reminded us that there's a lot more work to be done. It's one thing to have a house. It's another thing to make sure that people have a living, a livelihood. It's one thing to have a health center, but it's got to be good enough to meet the needs of everyone 24/7, not just in the daytime for light medical care. So we've learned a lot. It's humbling to realize how much more there is to do. But we need to take the lessons from Somalia and we need to apply them across the globe.
Reopening of its land borders on Wednesday night, Côte d'Ivoire has closed its land border, sea and air borders on the 22nd of March 2020, when the whole world was barricaded against the COVID-19 pandemic. While the sea and air borders reopened after a few months, the land borders remained closed. Côte d'Ivoire borders Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso and Ghana, and millions of people from these countries living on Ivorian soil had to take back roads to their home countries. Additionally, authorities say they are now in control of their clandestine transit routes and asked travelers to use approved routes. Côte d'Ivoire had been relatively spared by the COVID-19 pandemic, with about 800 deaths, and that's according to official figures. Welcome back. Well, let's head to Congo now, where the electoral body in the DRC says that it has started voter registration in 7 provinces in the eastern part of the country, where millions of civilians have been displaced by fighting between the army and rebels. It's the last round of voter registration ahead of the general elections scheduled for December this year. The Independent National Electoral Commission said that voters will be registered in the volatile provinces of Ituri and North Kivu, as well as in the U.S. and in Canada. Voter registration across the country started in December, and it has so far seen at least 12 million people register as voters, according to the Commission. The violence in the eastern part of the country is estimated to have displaced some 5.6 million people who are in dire need of food and shelter. And let's come back to Nigeria now. Call it a respite for Nigerians, and you may not be wrong, as the president today ordered the CBN to retain the circulation of the old 200 naira notes side by side with the new 1,000 and 500 and 200 naira notes. President Muhammadu Buhari, in a nationwide broadcast today, told Nigerians that the decision is to mitigate the difficulties being expressed with regards to the supply of the redesigned notes.
I am not unaware of the obstacles placed on the path of innocent Nigerians by unscrupulous officials in the banking industry, entrusted with the process of implementation of the new monetary policy. I am deeply pained and sincerely sympathize with you all over these unintended outcomes. To stem this tide, I have directed the CBN to deploy all legitimate resources and legal means to ensure that our citizens are adequately educated on the policy. Enjoy easy access to cash withdrawal through availability of appropriate amount of currency and the ability to make deposits. I have similarly directed the CBN should intensify collaboration with anti-corruption agencies so as to ensure that any institution or persons found to have impeded or sabotaged the implementation should be made to bear the full weight of the law. During the extended phase of the deadline for currency swap, I listened to invaluable pieces of advice from well-meaning citizens and institutions across the nation. I similarly consulted widely with representatives of the state governors as well as the Council of State. Above all, as an administration that respects the rule of law, I have also noted that the subject matter is before the courts of our land and some pronouncements have been made. To further ease the supply pressures, particularly to our citizens, I have given approval to the CBN that the old 200 naira banknotes be released back into circulation and that it should also be allowed to circulate as legal tender with the new 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira banknotes for 60 days from February 10th, 2023 to April 10th, 2023, when the old 200 naira note ceases to be legal tender.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. An enormous plume of dust from the Sahara Desert is threatening to sweep through half of Cameroon. The statement was made by the Transport Minister of Cameroon, who adds that if the forecast wind conditions are maintained, the dust could cause road accidents due to reduced visibility. He also says the dust could cause respiratory diseases. The plume of dust is currently crossing Cameroon's far north region and could reach 4 other regions in the coming days. The minister has asked people to drive carefully and protect their eyes and noses appropriately. Each year, Cameroon experiences dust storms from the Sahara that cross the country from north to south. Artists from across Africa performed at the Amani Festival in the Democratic Republic to show support for victims of conflict. More than 20 acts from across the continent, including Senegalese rap star Didier Awadi, performed, and that's despite rising insecurity in the region.
More than 30,000 people attending the festival, and the gig is lasting all weekend. The Amani Festival, which means peace in Swahili, usually takes place in Goma, capital of North Kivu province. But it was moved for the first time since its launch in 2014 due to an M23 rebel offensive that drew close to the city last week.
Given the situation in the city of Goma and its surroundings, a situation that we don't like, we really wish that there could be stability there. We have relocated the event to Bukavu in order to bring a strong message that there must be some stability and that life should go back to normality in the city of Goma and the surrounding area.
Several artists from Bukavu take part. Singer Ren Saidati performs a Mutwashi dance, also known as the dance of freedom.
The message is a message of peace. It is a message of reconciliation, because we in West Africa, we expect a lot of things on the Congo. We're committed to come and be in solidarity with the suffering of the people. Today, Congo is going through a dark time. We have the duty to be in solidarity, to be there on the side of the people who are being attacked.
Bukavu is the capital of South Kivu province, deemed relatively safer despite the presence of several armed groups. And so, at this preferred venue, the audience claps, cheers, and sings along to the music, and hopefully leaves behind the sorrows of war for one blissful weekend.
And from entertainment to sports, the government of Rwanda has been promoting the participation of sports to all classes of citizens to leave no one behind. It has also introduced new sports and physical practices. One of them, street tennis, is gaining popularity among residents of all ages.
It's Saturday morning and Eric Muhawenimana is taking part in a game of street tennis. He's been playing street tennis in Rwanda's capital, Kigali, since the sport was introduced last year. On car-free days like this one, local authorities turn the streets of Kigali into mini court where young and old participate in the game.
At the beginning, it was very complicated to us because we didn't know much about rules of play, but we caught up. Now we are familiar with it.
He was one of many Rwandans who have welcomed the new sport, which was inspired by a partnership with the Barbados government following an official visit to the East African country in November. The smaller courts mean the players must move very quickly to hit the swerve from other opponents.
We're having fun, and when you feel tired, you can ask your teammate to take over. It is very enjoyable.
Rwandan sports officials say the game is very affordable and can be played by anyone provided they have the pace. Olivier Tuyisenge enjoys a conventional game of tennis, which is still popular in the country. Even though his curiosity about street tennis is heightening, for now, the conventional court is still where he spends his Saturday nights.
And on that entertaining note, we end Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu.